The circulatory system consists of heart, blood and blood vessels. The pumping organ is heart. It is located between the lungs in the thoracic cavity. Heart is covered with a fluid-filled sac called pericardium. It is a muscular organ which is as big as our fist. Now the structure of the heart. Heart is provided with the 4 chambers. This is the right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. Heart consists of 4 chambers. See, between the right atrium and right ventricle, there is a valve is there, that is tricuspid valve. And between the left auricle and the left ventricle, the bicuspid valve. See, these are the valves. And at the base of the blood vessel also, valves are present. So, between the right atrium and the right ventricle, tricuspid valve, and between left atrium and the left ventricle, bicuspid valve, and the base of the blood vessels, that is semilunar valve. See, from different parts of the body, blood is collected into the right atrium, and that blood contains less oxygen because oxygen utilized by our body cells. And oxygen less means that blood we called as the deoxygenated blood. And this right atrium dilates to receive blood from this vena cava. And when this atrium contracts, this ventricle will dilate, this valve open and blood enters into the right ventricle. And this blood is deoxygenated blood. And the blood vessel which arises from right ventricle is pulmonary artery. This pulmonary artery supplies blood to the lungs. From the lungs, it receives oxygen, and that oxygenated blood is returned to left atrium through the pulmonary veins. And from this left atrium, blood enters into the left ventricle through this valve, that is the bicuspid valve. And when the left ventricle contracts, blood rushes into the aorta, and the branches of aorta supply blood to all parts of the body. In order to exert more pressure, the wall of left ventricle is more thicker. And there is a muscular septum in between this auricles and ventricles that also prevent the mixing of oxygenated blood with the deoxygenated. Now see the circulation from the right ventricle arising pulmonary artery which supply blood to the capillaries which present in the lungs, and it receives oxygen, and that oxygenated blood returned to left atrium through the pulmonary veins, and this circulation is called pulmonary circulation, starting from right ventricle and it ends in the left atrium is called pulmonary circulation. And the blood vessel arising from the left ventricle, that is aorta, and the branches of aorta supply blood to all parts of the body, and through the vena cava it enters into right atrium, and that circulation is called a systemic circulation. Listen children, the separation of the right side and left side of the heart is useful to keep oxygenated and deoxygenated blood from mixing. Such separation allows a highly efficient supply of oxygen to the body. This is useful in animals that have high energy needs such as birds and mammals, which constantly use energy to maintain their body temperature. Means they are the warm-blooded animals. Blood before reaching to our fingertip, it enters into the heart twice. And it happens in other vertebrates also. And this is known as double circulation. Fishes, on the other hand, have only two chambers, that is, one auricle and one ventricle. And the blood is pumped to the gills, is oxygenated there, and passes directly to the rest of the body. Thus, blood goes only once through the heart in the fish during one cycle of passage through the body. It is called single circulation. Blood is a fluid connective tissue that constantly circulating in the body. An adult human has 5 to 6 liters of blood. Blood consists of two parts. The fluid part of blood is called plasma and the blood cells. Next, we can study about the plasma. It is pale yellow fluid matrix of blood and slightly alkaline. 92% of plasma is water. The rest 8% are proteins, waste products, nutrients, hormones, and inorganic salts. The main function of plasma is transport of absorbed food, carbon dioxide, and nitrogenous wastes. Blood cells form 45% of blood. Blood cells are of three types: red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Red blood cells, or RBC, are biconcave, circular enucleate cells, and it contains a reddish respiratory pigment called hemoglobin. The hemoglobin content varies in different stages of human life. Look at this table. Infants' blood contains 17 to 22 gram per deciliter. And in case of children, it is 11 to 13 gram per deciliter. In case of an adult, it is 12 to 18 gram per deciliter, and adult human male 14 to 80 gram, and adult human female's blood contain 12 to 16 gram per deciliter. And the hemoglobin content varies in different organisms also, or different animals. In case of a cow, it is 11 to 12 gram per 100 ml. In case of a bull, it is 13 to 14 gram per 100 ml, and calf, it may be 10 to 11 gram per 100 ml or deciliter. Okay. Next, WBC, they are colorless, nucleated blood corpuscles, and last year you studied about different types of WBCs like a neutrophil, eosinophil, basophil, monocyte, and lymphocyte. The major function of WBC is ingestion of germs and secretion of antibodies and heparin. Next is blood platelets. When we are injured and bleeding starts, naturally the loss of blood from the system has to be minimized. The leakage of blood lead to loss of pressure, which would reduce the efficiency of pumping system. To avoid this, blood has platelets. Blood platelets take part in blood clotting and sealing the area of injury. What are the functions of blood in our body, children? Blood helps in transport of respiratory gases, nutrients, waste products. It also transports hormones. It helps to maintain body temperature and protect our body from infection, and also maintain water balance in our body. Okay. Next, blood vessels. Human blood flows only inside closed blood vessels. They are of three types: arteries, veins, and capillaries. Arteries transport blood from the heart to different parts of the body. The walls of the arteries are thick and elastic. Valves are absent in arteries. All the arteries carry oxygenated blood except the pulmonary arteries. Next, veins. Veins carry blood from various parts of the body towards the heart. They are therefore collecting blood vessels. Blood flow is slow but smooth. See, veins transport blood from different parts of the body to the heart. The walls of the veins are thin and less elastic. Throughout the length of the veins, valves are present that prevent backward blood flow. All the veins carry deoxygenated blood except pulmonary veins. Next, capillaries. Capillaries are narrow blood vessels having a single layered wall. They are in contact with the tissues inside all body organs. Their main function is exchange of materials between blood and body cells. For this, blood capillaries have fine pores from which some plasma and dissolved substances and sometimes WBCs comes out. It is called a capillary exchange. The capillaries reunite to produce veins. Let us see what is blood pressure. When the blood flows through the vessels, it exerts some pressure on the wall of the blood vessels. The force that blood exerts against the wall of a vessel is called blood pressure. This pressure is much greater in arteries than in veins. The pressure of blood inside artery during ventricular systole, that means the contraction of ventricles, is called systolic pressure, and the pressure in artery during ventricular diastole, diastole means the relaxation, is called diastolic pressure. The normal systolic pressure is about 120 millimeter of mercury and diastolic pressure is 80 millimeter of mercury. Okay. The blood pressure is measured with an instrument called sphygmomanometer. High blood pressure is also called hypertension and is caused by the constriction of arterioles, which results in increased resistance to blood flow. It may lead to the rupture of an artery and internal bleeding. Dear children, there is another type of fluid involved in transportation, that is lymph or tissue fluid. When blood flows through the capillaries, as you know that the wall of the capillaries are single layered. Through the pores present in the walls of the capillaries, some amount of plasma, proteins, and some blood cells escape into intercellular spaces in the tissues to form the tissue fluid or lymph. It is similar to the plasma and contains less protein. Lymph drains into lymphatic capillaries from the intercellular spaces which join to form large lymph vessels, and these are finally open into larger veins. So what the lymph is doing? Lymph carries digested and absorbed fat from intestine and drains excess fluid from extracellular space back into the blood. See children, lymph is a fluid which formed from the blood and reabsorbed into the blood itself. Dear students, so far you have studied transportation in animals. Now let us study transportation in plants. In case of plants, the soil is the richest and nearest source of raw materials like nitrogen, phosphorus and other minerals. The absorption of these substances therefore occurs through the root. If the distance between soil contacting organ, that is root, and chlorophyll containing organ, that is leaf, are small, energy and raw materials can easily diffuse to all parts of the plant body. But if these distances become large because of change in plant body design, diffusion process will not be sufficient to provide raw materials. See children, plants have low energy needs because plants do not move and plant bodies have a large proportion of dead cells in many tissues. As a result, plants have low energy needs and can use relatively slow transport system. Plants have two independent transport pathways with different types of conducting tubes. They are xylem, which helps in the transport of water and minerals, and the other phloem, which transport the products of photosynthesis from the leaves to other parts of the plant. Let us study transport of water in plants. You know, xylem is the conducting tissue which transport water in plants. Xylem consists of tracheids, vessels, xylem fiber and xylem parenchyma. See children, the vessels and tracheids of the roots, stem and leaves are interconnected to form a continuous system of water conducting channel reaching all parts of the plant. At the roots, cells in contact with the soil actively take up ions. This creates a difference in the concentration of these ions between the root and the soil. Therefore, water from the soil moves into the root. This means that there is steady movement of water into root xylem, creating a column of water that push water upwards, that is root pressure. See children, this pressure is not enough to move water over the heights. So plants use another strategy to move water upwards, that is transpiration. What is transpiration, children? Yes, the loss of water in the form of vapor from the aerial parts of the plant is known as transpiration. This creates a suction which pulls water from the xylem cells of the roots. That is called as transpiration pull. See children, transpiration pull helps in the absorption and upward movement of water and minerals dissolved in it from the roots to the leaves. The effect of root pressure in transport of water is more important at night. During the daytime, transpiration pull becomes the major driving force in the movement of water in the xylem. Now tell me, what are the importance of transpiration? Transpiration helps in the absorption and the upward movement of water and minerals, and it also helps in temperature regulation. Okay? So far we have discussed the transport of water in plants. Now let us study transport of food in plants. As you know that the conducting tissue which transport food is phloem. Phloem consists of sieve tubes, companion cells, phloem fiber and phloem parenchyma that you already studied, is it? The transport of soluble products of photosynthesis is called translocation. Besides the products of photosynthesis, that is glucose, phloem transports amino acids and other substances. These substances are especially delivered to the storage organs of roots, fruits, and seeds. The translocation of food and other substances takes place in the seed tubes both in upward and downward directions. See children, the translocation in phloem is achieved by utilizing energy. Material like sucrose is transferred into phloem tissue using energy from ATP. What is ATP? Adenosine triphosphate, energy currency of the cells. Okay. This increases osmotic pressure of the tissue, causing water to move into it. This pressure moves the material in the phloem to tissues which have less pressure. This allows the phloem to move material according to the plant's needs. For example, in the spring season, sugar stored in the root or stem would be transported to the buds, which need energy to grow. Is it clear, children? The transport of water and food? Okay, thank you.